I'm hanging out with a team, or part of the team, behind Vintage Electric here in Santa Clara, California.
Yep.
At your new location that's like just across the street from your old location.
Exactly, a little bigger now though.
I love it. This is the factory store, so it means people can actually come in and test ride these bikes, trying to dial in fit, you know, or trying to dial in how much power, what colors, all that. I love how much choice that you're bringing to this, I guess, the space now with the cafe bike. And I wanted to ask you, why is it called a cafe? Like, Andrew, what's the deal?
Yeah, I think that it's just kind of a nod to, we've always been kind of inspired by motorcycles, and you know, the cafe racer's always been a big one. But you know, this bike's all about like getting you around your city, going to a cafe, meeting up with friends, getting to work.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit of that nod to the old cafe racers, because this is kind of the new version of what that could possibly be one day.
Well, I love it. And this is the first bike that you guys have sold that is available in 3 sizes.
Yep.
So, you know, Nikki, like, have you ridden this? What do you think about it?
I love it.
Do you mind sharing your height, like how tall you are?
Almost 5'4" on a
Woo!
good day.
Awesome. One day, right?
One day.
Keep eating those
Still hoping.
veggies.
Yeah.
Well, so it's great because, yeah, they have those 3 different sizes. And Andrew was telling me that, you know, the idea of this bike is it could be more like a commuter getting around town. And not only does it have a removable battery and the option for that rack with the nice pannier that you see over there, but you know, when you ride further and you're actually pedaling, this is pedal assist only.
Yep.
You want it to be comfortable so that you don't, you know, yeah, it's like pedaling needs to fit your body better.
Yeah, leg extension, all of those things are really important on this bike. So having the 3 different frame sizes and the different stem sizes allows us to really get the perfect fit for our customers.
I love that. So again, factory store, if you're ever near Santa Clara, kind of San Jose, California, you could come in and I can actually see these. The office is really cool. There's all kinds of accessories and stuff. I appreciate it, you guys. I'm gonna like jump into this and do my thing, do the reviews, and very cool. So we're looking at a couple of colors. I think that, wait, what was, okay, so we have, this is the Golden Gate Red, and then what was Skyline?
Golden Gate Red and Skyline Bronze.
Oh yeah, and those are, for people who haven't been here, those are like things, like the Golden Gate Bridge, and then Skyline is that road that's really beautiful.
It's like a really famous motorcycle road that kind of bridges the ocean and then back to the valley side.
Have you taken these out there? And
definitely.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love it. So again, the color choices, the size choices, really neat to see this. So jumping in, getting a little bit more close up, this has the classic cantilever frame, and it's chromoly steel, so that's really strong. They say the max weight on this is 300 pounds, whereas a lot of electric bikes, they say like 250, and honestly, you might even be able to go a little higher than that. It's got 36 spokes versus just 32, double wall, aluminum alloy. They've got a rigid fork. This is alloy as well, so you know, some of the vibration dampening qualities and strength characteristics, that's throughout the frame, and I really appreciate that. Even a tapered head tube. So we were sort of talking about this bike and just like, you know, what is it really capable of? When you taper the head tube like that, you improve the strength. So it's like 1.125 to 1.5 inches down here. And then they've even got a 15mm Thru-Axle, like a Maxwell style. So on this side, there's a quick release, and then when you put it through, you actually spin it, and it threads right into that right crank arm, which is just, I mean, you really don't see that on any other cruiser type of bikes. And I don't know what to call this exactly. It's kind of like a city bike, sort of cruiser, a little bit more active. Andrew was talking about the stem, low-rise bars here. Still got those leather grips, stitched, very nice. These are from Velo. Hydraulic disc brakes, of course. You want to be able to stop when you're going faster, and this is a speed pedelec. It's class 3, up to 28 miles per hour. I was very impressed with the motor power. He was telling me like 70 Newton meters of torque. It's a gearless direct drive motor that it's really tuned up. It's like you can tell when you pedal on this thing, it's using a torque sensor at the bottom bracket. There's one on either side, so it's really fluid. And I didn't have to overexert myself when I was in the higher levels of pedal assist. It took right off. So it almost had a feel like a throttle, but they're able to fit in with the new legislation in California, so class 3. Appreciate that for sure. The bike weighs about 56.2 pounds, which isn't too bad considering this is the medium size frame. I did measure and weigh this one over here, the Golden Gate Red, because, you know, it doesn't have the rack. The rack is optional. I really love this thing. I've never seen a rack quite like it. It has a pannier blocker and then a lower arm and then a top arm for maybe a saddlebag. And you'll see that wouldn't necessarily block the 3 LEDs on the back of this custom Velo saddle. So it's also leather, matches those grips, dual density, really comfortable, but style is such an important thing for all of these vintage electric bikes. Like, they just, and the battery is a really important part of that, I think. So rather than having a black thing that's kind of tacked on or whatever, like a traditional battery pack, they've got this alloy encased. It does weigh a little bit more, 9.4 pounds, but this one now is removable versus the much larger, more prominent battery packs on some of their other models. I love that this has aluminum alloy fenders, paint matched aluminum alloy chain cover, really minimalist, and even the chain ring right here, 44 tooth, it's kind of punched out, maybe to save on some weight. They've got those same MKS vintage looking pedals. In a lot of ways, this is feature complete. We had those 3 LED lights in the rear. Those are powered by Supernova. Same with the headlight, 165 lumens. This is the E3 e-bike V6S, aimable. It's mounted on that handlebar clamp right here, but below. So if you ended up putting something up here, maybe your phone or just some other sort of tracker, I actually think that it looks great. It's beautiful just like this, but that's going to point where you steer. And the cabling is, you can kind of see it's tucked out of the way, it's tacked. It's not internally routed, and this may come back to frame strength and stuff, but it stays mostly out of the way. You can see it's tacked below that down tube. The battery pack, that's, a 48 volt, 10.4 amp hours. I would say it's slightly above average. I used to say 36 volt, 10 amp hours, but now more and more bikes are going 48 volts, which is a little bit more powerful. It sends electricity more efficiently, and it's able to send like higher amps to that motor back here. 750 watt nominal. He didn't tell me the peak. 70 newton meters torque sounds like crazy, but it actually feels really powerful when you ride on it. So gearless direct drive hub motors tend to be very quiet and sort of like bulletproof because you've got these magnets around the edge of the motor and then stators in the middle. And this one actually looks pretty compact. I was asking him how much it weighed, and it was like, 7 pounds, something like that. I'm not able to measure that myself, but a little bit lighter in appearance, at least, than some of the other motors. This is from TDCM, I was told, and you can see the spokes back here, the 13 gauge versus 14 gauge up front. So you do have a thicker, sturdier build around that motor, and because those spokes are shorter, they tend to be stronger as well, but maybe a little bit less comfortable. They aren't giving you as much flex. So thankfully, we've got these Schwalbe balloon tires, Fat Franks, 28 by 2 inches. So 28 being a wider diameter, gives you some more efficiency, lowers that attack angle. That's the size that you'd have on traditional city bikes or road bikes is like the 700C 28. And then having that fatter diameter, that does help to dampen vibration along with the steel frame, and that's really nice considering that you have a rigid fork here. There's no suspension. And in some ways it's like coming back to the fenders and everything. If you put too much suspension on a bike, you lose some of that power transfer, and you might have kind of more of a bouncy feel, whereas this just feels solid. And in some ways the weight works to your advantage. It gives you this solid feel. The frame doesn't flex a whole lot. When I was doing the side test where you grab the handlebars and shake it, it just feels, it feels really good, and again, fairly sturdy. The weight of that battery is relatively low in center. We lifted the bike at the nose of the saddle, and it felt fairly, it was tipping a little bit to the front, but it felt fairly balanced. And that's something I think about when you have such a large, powerful hub motor in the rear. So anyway, 44 teeth on that chainring, 11 to 34 teeth in the rear. This is a 10-speed bike. So again, real emphasis on pedaling and being able to hit and maintain those higher top speeds. You need a wider range for that, and then having increments means that you're not jumping from one that feels a little bit slow and you're trying to pedal fast but not getting as much force up to one that you're struggling with. You have a nice range. And this is a Shimano Deore XT with Shadow Plus. That's that one-way clutch right there, this gray thing. So if you put it down, the chain's a little bit looser, can bounce around a bit more, and if you lock in the up position, it tightens up. And that's nice because I think it helps you to avoid drops. They don't have a chain guide. There's no plastic thing, and there aren't plates on the side of this chain ring. Of course, you do have the cover, which might help it to stay on from this side. I haven't had any problems with it. I've been riding around this parking lot, going over some bumps and stuff, and it's felt pretty good. But that is one of the trade-offs, and maybe that's a weight savings or just a style, kind of a beauty thing. It's nice to have a higher-end derailleur that's hopefully going to hold up better between service intervals. And again, just that tightness factor there. That's neat to see. I wouldn't have expected that on a bike like this. Usually that's reserved for mountain bikes and things. 170 millimeter cranks. Again, those pedals that are really stylish. And you can see that it does have rack bosses, so you could add your own rack if you wanted, in addition to or in place of their optional rack right there, and really dial that in. Just make sure that you get a disc brake compatible rack. The rear rotor here is 160 millimeters, Shimano hydraulic, and then 180 up front. So a lot of your stopping power does come from the front wheel as weight sort of shifts forwards. You're not going to have diving because there's no suspension fork on this. Anyway, it's nice to have, you know, high quality brakes when you're going faster and potentially maybe a heavier rider or more gear. 3-finger levers from Shimano up here. They do have adjustable reach, so coming back to that example with Nikki where you might be a more petite rider, having brakes that you can bring in a little bit and handle is going to be nice. I have done the standover height. I did all of the measurements for the medium-sized frame here, and then I compared the standover height, and it was like 31.5 from right here on the medium down to like 31 on the small. So there's still a little bit of a, you know, there's definitely some, you're gonna have to like lean the bike and step over, or a lot of times I'll swing my leg over from the side. The challenge is if you've got a rack, now you have potentially more stuff that you could bang your shin into. So kind of think about that. I actually really love just how these Brooks panniers look. I love that rack, but depending on how you use the bike, they could get in the way a little bit. So if we look inside the bag, I've got the charger. Look at this thing, 3 pounds, definitely heavier than average. One of the heavier chargers I've seen, actually. But it has a fuse, it has a fan, and that's because this is a 6-amp charger. And I was told that the future models, they have like a black one that might be a little bit more compact, but it's only 5 amps. So with 6 amps, you can charge this thing in just a couple of hours. And I was noticing that the interface is different. I was like, oh, you used to have the Rosenberger like magnetic, that was so cool. And Andrew told me, well, in the real world, people put that in their garage and it falls on the floor and it picks up like little metal filings, iron filings and stuff. And he was like, it wasn't as great as we thought. So they went with this other charging standard. I don't know what it's called, but it's still proprietary. Hopefully not going to get mixed up or bent quite as easily. Got this nice rubber plug, but this is something that could be misplaced easily. There's no place to like put it, so just keep an eye on that when you get this bike. It's not the end of the world if this is exposed, but dust and water and stuff could get in there. I think you could probably get a replacement cap from them if you really need it. And then maybe one of the other complaints or question marks I have about any gearless direct drive rear hub motor is that as you spin the wheel, there's this thing called cogging. So the magnets repel naturally. If the bike's off, you get a little bit of like engine brake happening. And that's the trade-off. Like you want quiet, bulletproof design, where you've got a little bit of this cogging. I'm gonna try to demonstrate that. So you can see it coasts to a stop a little bit faster than maybe the front wheel. I can try to do that one now. It just goes and goes. Again, that Thru-Axle is really nice, impressive. And in the rear, we have a 12 millimeter threaded axle, no quick release with nuts. It's kind of standard on a lot of hub motors. See, this is still going. So you just don't get the drag. And also with the new bikes, you don't have like a regen, or at least with the Cafe, there's no regen button. And these brake levers don't have motor inhibitors because it's torque sensing. So maybe you don't need it as much. There's no throttle. It's not going to really get out of control. As soon as you stop pedaling and pushing, the motor cuts out, but you can't activate any kind of regeneration. You just have that subtle cogging that's happening at all times. And then the motor cable, I was trying to get down here. I'm really impressed with this side of the bike. This is the vulnerable side with the derailleur. If it tips, that could get scraped or bent up or whatever, but that's typical of any bike. And the motor cable isn't over here, which is another vulnerable option, I guess, the design characteristic. On this side, that cable is tucked really nicely between the disc brake rotor and the dropout. So that's the power cable, and it's just, look at this thing. It's like threaded. It's got a quick disconnect, so if you do need to service the rear wheel, you can get it off without doing too much. You're going to have to cut some zip ties and stuff, but I just feel like that's something to keep in mind. These Schwalbe Fat Frank tires, They've got reflective sidewall stripes, and they've got active line K-guards, so they're going to be more puncture resistant. They come in this cream color as well as that black color. So anyway, just coming back, you've got the hydraulic brake line and then a really fat, like high quality power cable going to the motor. Another area that I always complain about, seems like, you know, there are no bottle cage bosses on this, which is like, well, you know, where would they put it? I get that. Get the bag, or maybe get yourself one of those cup holders, because the cockpit is so clean. They have silver ones that just hold your drink. They look really nice. And then back down here to the kickstand, it's middle mounted, so if you're ever walking the bike backwards, the crank arms turn and then they collide, right? But again, supporting at the middle of the bike seems pretty good. Want to keep it stable. I'd rather like have the bike not fall over compared to a rear mounted kickstand. If it's back here and a lot of that weight's forward, the bike might be a little bit more precarious or vulnerable that way. Anyway, coming back to the battery pack, I did want to show how this works. What you do is you pull out on this little pin and then you slide up. I'm going to try to do this with one hand. There we go. It's a little bit snug because these are brand new bikes. There it is, 9.4 pounds. Got the charging port so you can charge it off the bike. There's the pin that kind of releases it. And Andrew was telling me, well, you can actually unscrew that and then people can't take the battery. So in a way it's locking. It just doesn't have a keyed lock like a lot of other bikes. And then there's the slide track that gets it on. I'm gonna try to put this back on one-handed. Just line it up. There we go. And just, there we go, click. And then here's that unscrew part. You just spin this. There we go. And now, you know, someone could put a screw in there and try to pull it out, but I think it's a lot less likely. It's a really clever way to do locking, but to make it convenient. And I feel like the design of these has always been really, you know, they take kind of simple, proven designs, and they've been refining it, but it's still, you know, it gets the job done. 27.2 millimeters on that seat post diameter, 350 millimeter length, so you do have quite a bit of length. The seat post and the saddle aren't as high on this bike as I would like. I kept them a little bit low for the photos and stuff, just because it looks cooler that way, but if I'm actually pedaling, I probably raise that a little bit, and I might even consider a seat post suspension, like a thud buster or a body float. But then I'm gonna have the trade-off of, see how the light is wired through the seat post? You might be able to, you know, there's a disconnect point right there, and you could run it through your other seat post, but I don't know if they all have, if they're open on top like that. You might have to drill a hole, and then are you compromising the integrity of it? I don't know. I just love the saddle though. Again, it has those 3 LEDs built right in. Awesome. And if you do go for a suspension seat post on your own to improve comfort, note that it raises that minimum saddle height by like 3 inches. So that's a real question mark if you're someone who's already struggling to reach the pedals a little bit. A nice bell, flick bell, much higher quality than a lot of the ones I see. Shimano SLX triggers, 2-way, so you can click it forward and back. And then, almost got it. Let's see. I think if we do 3, it's like 1, 2, 3, yeah, per action. And I like that, because as you're accelerating quickly, which this bike definitely does, you want to be able to handle that speed by pedaling. Anyway, coming up here to the display panel, really small, fairly easy to reach, kind of compact. There's an M button. Don't know what that stands for, but it turns it on. Starts off in assist level 1. We've got 5 battery bars, 20% increments. You can arrow up or down. Down takes you all the way to 0 assist, which basically you can just run the lights. And apparently they have an automatic daylight sensor built in, but if you want to turn them on to use during the day or just for fun, you can hold that up button. There we go, and there's a light indicator. We've got speed, pedal assist, and battery. That's like the simplest readout, but if you tap that M button again, it'll also tell you your average speed, max speed. It'll change to odometer and trip meter down there at the bottom, as well as trip time. And I've noticed as I'm riding, there's actually like a power graph that like kind of goes up depending on how hard the motor is working. It'll give you some idea of, you know, how quickly you're using that battery. Because it is so powerful and zippy, you can drain it more quickly. So they estimate like 20 to 60 miles. It totally depends on your weight, the terrain, even the wind, and then those assist levels. If you're in assist level 1 and you're actively pedaling, well, yeah, it's going to go a lot further. But as soon as you go up to 5, which of course is the most fun, you get that draw, that real draw that you start to see. There are also some other settings in here where you can change maybe the units and stuff by holding up and down, and then it'll bring you into the settings. But overall, again, really clean cockpit from the top. A lot of the wires are a little bit more hidden, and the bike rides really smooth, pretty quiet. I was going to do a ride test on the red one just because it doesn't have the bags or anything that might be rattling around. So I'm going to power it up. I'm going to walk it forward to get that crank arm out of the way. The kickstand. Take it up to assist level 5, and let's just take it for a spin. And yeah, it's super powerful. And then you do notice there's like a drag feeling when you let off of the pedals, and you're not putting torque in again. It just sort of like, and I think that's the cogging. And even though this one doesn't have the swept back bars like some of the other vintage bikes, I still feel like I'm not having to lean too far forward. It's a fairly like upright body position. Hey Andrew, how's it going? Do you mind swapping me out and you can just like mount up on this thing? I wanted to show what it looks like to have someone on it.
Sure, yeah.
Nice, yeah. Real easy. He's wearing the right shoes for this day too. They match the saddle and everything. It's beautiful. Very nice. And it is so quiet. I've had a blast looking at these with you. I mean, it's awesome when you go to the headquarters, you get to meet the people behind the company. Yeah. You've been in business since like 2013,
yep.
Right? You've been on Jay Leno's garage.
Yes,
you've been all over the place. It's super exciting. I'm glad to see you guys are offering something like slightly different. It maintains the character and the culture of the company, but that pedal assist gives you class 3, so it's not like the off-road.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Like, it's every day I ride this back and forth to my house, and like I ride here on level 5, just clipping as fast as I possibly can go. And then the great thing is on the way home, I put it down on level 1 or level 2, get a little workout. It's, you know, our company's not just about throttle bikes. You know, like we really want to build pedal assist bikes so people can get some exercise on, and it makes it really easy to commute for them.
And I love the battery design. Just I was showing like, you can kind of slide it off, and then being able to take that pin out as kind of like a little lock thing. That was really cool. Do you sell additional batteries if someone wants to?
You can buy an extra battery and put it on.
Okay. So you got the panniers, the rack, the additional battery pack. What's your warranty these days? How does that work?
Yeah, so these are 2-year warranty. So pretty much no questions asked. Just we have a great service team that takes care of all of our customers. You know, we pick up the phone, we call them, we really talk to them. It's not like fill out a form and hear from us in 2 weeks. Like
they might even talk to you.
Yeah,
right?
you might. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we really focus on taking care of our customers. And you know, now that we've been around for a while, we've had a lot of bikes out on the road. Like, you know, there's some service stuff that comes up, and for us, upgrading bikes and getting those people back out on the road with their same bike that they purchased from us 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, some of them, is really important to us.
And I was impressed with actually how light it is, considering that it has the fenders and the lights and everything, and just how clean it is. It's a lot of times you get on these bikes and they're like 60 plus pounds, but you know, you're at like that 56 mark. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, definitely. And we wanted to make sure that like anyone could really lift it up onto the train, use it for a commute that way. Then also, if you take the battery box off, you lose 10 pounds.
That's right.
So it makes it easier to lift up onto a bike rack if you're loading 2 of them or whatever.
It's an excellent point.
Yeah, but we really wanted to make sure we had a lot of power. The bike went fast because that's what we do. Yeah. But we also kept it light and good looking.
Yeah, this is great. So I'm out at San Jose International Airport. Like actually on the other side, there's this great parking lot, and I thought it'd be a neat way to show off the bikes a little while we're riding. They've just felt so fast and smooth. I easily hit 28 miles per hour, and I was pedaling in a really comfortable gear range, right? I didn't feel like I was having to beat eggs, so to speak, or like work too hard. It's nice having that 10 sprocket range. And then also the cogging thing that I talked about. There's a little bit of drag there, but I was talking to Andrew, and they dialed in the controller so that it gives a little bit of assist. So especially at the lower speeds, we were coasting great, and it felt really nice. Andrew, do you mind maybe you can hop on your bike there, and I can just ride around and show what it looks like? I'm gonna maybe take it down to level 3 because riding with one hand in level 5 is just, it's like pretty intense. Sweet. Go for it.
All right.
over and go behind you. Will you turn on your lights?
Yep.
There you go. And it's perfect, like that positioning keeps the lights clear from the rack, you know, if you have a pannier bag or maybe a trunk bag. Love the headlight. You know, if you're wearing a long coat, the back of your coat could still kind of flop down and cover up that light. So just be aware so that people see you, cars see you. Maybe put something on your helmet or your backpack. Very nice. Okay guys, you're right up close. You can see the cassette and the derailleur. I'm gonna shift some gears. I'm in assist level 3 to start out with. You might hear some like, you know, a little bit of the motor noise. Then I'm gonna shift up to level 5. So really powerful towards the end, and you can get that just full noise, including going over some bumps. So you can listen for like fender rattle and stuff. But so far, I've been impressed with how quiet it is. From here you should be able to see me pedal and maybe associate that with motor noise, but it's just so quiet. Andrew was saying they spent a lot of time really dialing in the amps on a pure sine wave controller, just to keep it quiet, keep it efficient, you know, use that energy to produce power instead of noise. Feels pretty steady too, you know, riding like this. I'm not getting like speed wobble like I do on some other heavier bikes, you know, with that nice solid fork. And then turning has been pretty good. You know, a lot of the turns I'm making are pretty wide like this, so I have plenty of room for my foot, but you can see where the fender, if you make a sharp turn, could get pretty close to your foot right there. Speedtest. You can see the little power meter there ramping up as I pedal. There we go. Woo. It's like air conditioning. Nice. Hey guys, I couldn't leave without showing you the little, again, factory store. You can come in here and check out some of their different products and even some special editions like this police edition. Which model is that again?
That's the tracker that we just did it. We did it for the 1199 Foundation, which is for the California Highway Patrol. Huh. And we auction one off once a year for them.
That is so cool.
It's just a modified tracker.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's just in the helmets. They got the clothes, some surfboards, big wall of bikes up here, and then, of course, the lights. When it's actually dark, they really do quite a good job. You can see the red on the back. And the Cafe is one of the more affordable bikes in the vintage lineup at $39.95. Just with the sizes and the different colors and stuff. I mean, it's a very, to me, I'm starting to understand what goes into building something that's so custom like this, something that's like really beautiful and really powerful, with all the nice touch points, including the bell and everything. I was just, I come into these reviews looking at all the specs and really digging in and trying to, tear the thing apart a little bit to give you the insight. But when you ride it and you get a feel for it, this is definitely one of the most powerful, I want to say just fluid. It's kind of an organic feeling when you pedal it. The torque sensors, I don't know what sensors they're using, but having one on both sides or something, it just goes. And I didn't feel like it was being activated when I wasn't pedaling. I felt like I had full control. The brakes felt really good. And again, just that whoosh, like up to speed. The level 5 was one of the most impressive level 5s that I've had on any bike. And, coming from these kind of the off-road version where you have throttles and stuff, like you still get that feeling of power with the bike. And I just wanted to kind of reiterate that. Sometimes it's hard to communicate on video. Of course, there's that moment where I'm like going super fast and you can see it accelerating. But yeah, just a really, really great feeling. Great. Thank you so much for having me. I think that's it, guys, for the full write-up. I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Some of those measurements I talked about, you can leave some comments, see some other pictures. I think, have fun and ride safe.